It's okay. I'm here. I'm here. It's been a while since you've had one of those nightmares. Tell me, what was it about?
So, Joe, how has it been for you seeing all the praise for Dune Part 2?
It's wild, isn't it? It's wild. Not in your wildest dreams would you be getting this kind of response. And I love the fact it was a little bit like that on Arrival when there was like a lot of memes with Amy Adams standing there with the whiteboard where people were, putting confetti or something on it. It was like when you see it seep into the culture and, I've seen a lot of references to it recently. I kind of always feel like that's particularly joyous that you feel like you're part of the cultural exchange. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, with Challengers that just came out, there have been cuts of Dune with the Challenger score on top of it. Have you seen that?
I love it. I love people playing and engaging with it. But what's extraordinary is I've met people who've seen it over 20 times. Can you believe that?
Oh my
And it's
God.
like that's impressive, deeply impressive. People just seem to want to keep going back and delving. They don't want that world to stop, which is really mission accomplished. I mean, for an editor, that's what you're aiming for, is to go through a substantial story with an audience, but kind of leave them wanting some more. And so it feels like we got that right. But, it's getting there that's what it's all about for me. But it's so gratifying. I can't tell you.
Well, I mean, truly, what you do is so important because it's through the edit that we get the visuals, the script, like the world of Dune to come alive. And, you just mentioned that you've heard of, some people have seen it over like 20 times. Like this movie is 2 hours and 46 minutes, but like it really does go by so quickly. So for you, when you were editing this, like how did you maintain that type of momentum as you brought this together?
Like sometimes, they're like different ways. I mean, the edit is the last kind of script pass, if you like. You start with a script and then it becomes storyboards and concept art. And then it becomes flesh and blood. Actually, there's a step where Denny will go back to the script and adapt it to fit. The storyboards are a real conceptual workout of the whole film and the concept art. They develop how the world works. How do the arms of the harvester move so that you can then place Paul and Chani in danger, in the shadows of that arm or the leg, and so all of that's been going on. Then you're flesh and blood, and you've got these amazing kind of performances to sort of play with. I mean, I come from a music background, so it's always like the big plus is working with performance and these amazing performances and, adjudicating those little moments that make, for example, Stilgar and Paul talking about centipedes. It's kind of like you can see that Paul is very preoccupied, but also there's a great, he just gives me these fantastic reactions to play with. That makes Stilgar extremely funny at times, which is something you really need in, after you've just seen a woman nearly kill herself from taking a poison. It's sort of like a relief, but it's also deeply rooted in character. So you're playing with all these elements in the edit. And I think the truth is it's a sort of, me and Denny have worked together numerous times now, and it's always trying to kind of search for that ultimate cut, the one where things click into place. And I'm not necessarily going to say that everything is perfect in that, but it feels like if we change it much more, it's not going to have something that it's got, which is that momentum and a sense of kind of the thread being pulled, the rope is pulled strong. And sometimes that's to do with kind of rebalancing scenes. It's, for example, I think in Dune 2, one of the kind of bigger changes was to do with, like in the middle of the film, feeling like you allow Paul to climb all the way up to leader, from outsider to insider, and then you go to Fade and you see the rise of Fade, and it felt like the sort of balancing of that was right, the way that we ended up doing it, and that evolved that way. In Dune 1, there were sometimes it's shaping scenes to intercut them more rather than stringing them together more and feeling that kind of a longer big wave. In the case of Paul's, you can achieve that different ways. With Paul discovering the ring in the tent is a really good example where they were sequential scenes and then we ended up kind of melting them, and so that Paul discovers the death at the same time as we do. So it's kind of, a simultaneity of like emotional resonance. God, that was, Cahiers de Cinema would be proud of me for that sentence, but you know what I mean? It's like that's in the wheelhouse of the editor to try and kind of find the optimum passage through those bigger story beats. Sometimes it's about, just being selective and giving the best position for something and finding a rhythm for things. But, part two was very much leaning into the action adventure. So a lot of it was just really enjoying playing with the kind of huge game that was in front of me.
Even looking back on your time editing this in post, is there a character you wish that you had like more reaction shots of that you want to like cut away during a scene? Like you mentioned Stilgar, like bringing some like levity in the midst of like some really dark, dramatic stuff that was going on.
I think they all managed to kind of give me, they're all fantastic actors. Let's just cut to the quick. So, you could get a really big impact from cutting to Lady Jessica, for example, for like little moments where her sort of fight with Chani is like the fight with Fade and Paul, which is principally a sort of duel to the death, an extremely kind of visceral fight, which was, very carefully shot over, I think, 4 or 5 days. But actually, just putting in those little reactions. There's an incredible one of Jessica standing when she thinks that Paul's dead and gonna die. And you see the whole world of hope collapse on Stilgar's face. And Josh Gurney's character also his teeth have never been more gritted. And it's like, those, they're very short, but they bring, it's always about character. It's always about character. It's always driven by that. And, I don't know, it's kind of joy. I didn't feel the need for any more than they gave me, which is just exquisite.
Of the final product, what was your favorite scene or sequences that you were able to piece together and edit?
Look, everybody's going to say the worm ride was probably the most complicated shoot. It was a 44-day shoot and immensely difficult for them to capture and get as much of it done practically. I particularly enjoyed, I love cutting the Paul Fade fight at the end. I love those little moments where, for example, you cut. You don't want the thing to be an overwhelming noise. You want little shapes and breath to break things up. And like, for example, the moment where the ornithopter falls from the sky behind China. It's just a little moment where you cut back, you don't hear anything. You just hear China going, and then bang, and then Hans comes in as massive. I don't know, I enjoyed all of those, but I love the fact that it embraces these big set pieces, but they also have these tiny little intimate scenes. I really love the Stilgar and Paul scenes in particular to cut. I'm really, really happy with the way that cut together. Paul's amazing reactions and Paul and Chani was like always kind of a bit of a dream. There was such a great chemistry there. So I don't know. I can't narrow it down to one thing. There was just many. It was just full of gifts, honestly.
You sound like a very proud parent of all of the shots that you got. Joe, thank you so much for chatting with me. And again, congratulations.
Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for the lovely questions.